Was Israel a nation left desolate by God? Now, this is a very interesting question. Was Israel a nation left desolate of God? Matthew 23, 37 to 38 says, "O Jerusalem," this is Jesus as he's crying for Jerusalem. "O Jerusalem, 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 thou that killest the prophets and stones them which are sent unto thee, how oft would I have gathered thy children together, even as a hen gathereth her chicks under her wings, and ye would not? Behold, your house is left unto you desolate." See, here's Jesus in all his love. Like a mother chicken, he wants to protect his children from a terrible anathema that would come and destroy them. And so here God has these beautiful feathers, and he wants to put it over his little chicks and protect them through a time of trouble. But can God protect a chick that runs off and does his own will? Even if you're seed, see? So, even if it's your own little one that runs off, and it's your seed, if that child of God doesn't have faith and stay with the Creator of the universe, which is Jesus, according to John 1:1, Hebrews 1, Hebrews 11, right? Galatians 3. This is how God wants us to realize that Jesus is the Creator, and God loved him so much that he gave him up to come and save us. In Israel, they were looking for the Messiah. They understood all the types and shadows were given them. The oracles of God were given to Israel. But they got into formalism. They fell into formalism where they actually started worshiping the symbols and forgetting who it was all about. And so when Jesus came along, they ended up killing the Messiah. And today, the nation of Israel is still looking for the Messiah. That happened 2,000 years ago. Still looking. And it's a sad thing because so many are left desolate. But as soon as you receive Jesus into your heart, you're not desolate anymore. The Ark of the Covenant, the great Shekinah glory, dwells in your heart. You become a sanctuary where Jesus dwells. And there's a sanctuary, as we know, in heaven where Jesus is doing his final work on behalf of man. The great judgment is taking place right now, according to Daniel 7. And so this is a sad day. The ark was taken captive, isn't that right, by the Philistines? And it's a sad thing, but a little boy was born when that ark was taken captive. And when he was born, his mom called him Ichabod because the glory departed. And when Jesus came to this earth, even though the glory departed, the Ten Commandments, the ark, everything was gone. It was hid in a cave somewhere. It was gone. It was left desolate. But Jesus Christ himself, in human flesh, stood in the temple. The Shekinah glory, veiled with human flesh, stood in the temple, and they rejected it again, and glory departed again. Do you see how interesting this is? The symbol was taken away. So Jesus came in person, and they still rejected him. Isn't that something? The nation was lost, but not the people. And I think this is a very important point I want to make. If a person is a Jew or if a person is a Gentile, we have to remember that God does not reject individuals. Do you hear what I said? Jesus does not reject individuals. If they come to him individually, they can be grafted in, just like Israel can be grafted in again. If they were broken off, a natural branch is broken off It so easily can be grafted back in. And a wild olive shoot that is a Gentile, even though it's wild, it can be grafted in and get nourishment from the stalk, from the root of the tree. And so the nation of Israel was left desolate as a nation, not as a people. So every individual, every Jew, every Gentile, Greek, Scythian, slave, whatever, can come to Jesus just as he is. And once he comes to Jesus and Jesus comes into their heart, the Shekinah glory begins to shine from inside. And it just starts to shine out of the person. And so this is, again, the love of God. Did Jesus predict 70 AD, the destruction of Israel, or of Jerusalem? Jesus did predict 70 AD. Luke 23, 27 to 28 says, "And there followed him a great company of people, and of the women, which also bewailed and lamented him." Now this is when Jesus was carrying the cross, okay? "But Jesus turned to them and said, Daughters of Jerusalem, weep not for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children." 30-some years, almost 40 years after Jesus said that, Jerusalem was destroyed by Titus and his army. And it was so destroyed in such a radical way that Jesus, in Matthew 24, he talked about that this was a type and a shadow of what was going to happen at the very end of time. What they did to Jerusalem, it will be, and then that's a geographical location, isn't that right? But what happened there is going to be worldwide. It's going to happen to the whole world. And Jesus, in his prophetic eye, looking down through time, saw this day coming. And let me tell you something, it wasn't pretty. Just before Titus and his army came and destroyed, there was a strange light that hovered over Jerusalem. And there was seen horses and warriors on their horses riding. And there was a strange man that went up and down the streets for 7 years saying, "Woe, woe, woe." And we know that Jerusalem was totally destroyed, and everything in it, every stone, like Jesus said was going to happen, was going to be moved and knocked over. The gold, all the gold that was in that temple, all melted and went into the cracks of the pavement. And what they did is they went in there and they took stone after stone out and took all the gold out. Now, let me ask you a question. What happened to all that money that they collected, that the Romans collected? What did they do with all that money? Anybody know? Anybody been to the Colosseum in Rome? The money, the gold that they took out of God's temple being destroyed is how they built the Colosseum in Rome. And if you've ever been there, it is a huge amount of work that went on there. And that's where all that money went. It went to selfish games. It went to the games that actually persecuted the early Christian church. Can you believe that? That's where the Christians were killed. They were killed in the very place where Israel failed. I mean, well, as far as the funding of it, the funding of the Colosseum. And, you know, it's a sad thought. It's a sad thought because God's people rejected Christ, and God's true followers suffered because of what happened with the Jewish nation. It's a heavy thought. Luke 13, 7 and 9 says, "Then said he unto the dressers of the vineyard, Behold, these 3 years I come seeking fruit on this fig tree, and find none. Cut it down. Why cumbereth it the ground? And he answered and said unto him, Lord, let it alone this year also, till I dig about it, and dung it, or fertilize it. And if it bear fruit, well. and if not, then after that thou shalt cut it down. Jesus saw it happening. Jesus came for his 3.5-year ministry and tried to prune the tree. He fertilized it with his sweat and blood. And what happened? They rejected the author and the finisher, and Jerusalem was destroyed. The final penalty. Matthew 18:21-22 says, Then came Peter to him and said, Lord, how oft shall my brother sin against me, and I forgive him? Till 7 times? And Jesus said unto him, I say not unto thee unto 7 times, but unto 70 times 7. And as we know, this has everything to do with this great prophecy. 70 times 7 equals 490 years. 70 weeks, 490 years. This was the time period that God gave Israel to turn from their wicked way, to be prepared to give an answer for the Messiah when he would come. And the Messiah came, and none lifted their voice except for one man, the second Elijah, John the Baptist. And he came like Elijah of old. He came to rebuke the sins of the church. And let me tell you something, friends. It is time for us, the third Elijah. We are going to have to give that same message of rebuke to the church first, or else we're going to suffer the anathema along with the rest of the world. The Adventist church is supposed to be the Elijah people in the end time. And what John the Baptist did and what Elijah did is the same message that we need to give. And you know what it's called? Revelation 14, the 3 angels' message. To come out of her, my people. And to call even the Adventist church itself out of its compromise, of its Laodicean compromise, or its indifference. The spirit of indifference, 1 foot in the world and 1 foot in the church. This is the call. Come out of her, my people. And the Adventist church is not Babylon. Did you hear what I said? But there are Babylonians in the Adventist church. And they are mixing the world into the church. And we're wondering why the church is becoming so weak. And the Elijah message cannot be preached as long as the church is so weak. And we're going to be, in our next session, we're going to talk about how God is going to remedy that. And it's not going to be pretty, friends. It's not going to be easy. But it is going to happen. The remedy is coming. And it's going to be a hard experience, but we must go through it. Did James write to the nation of Israel? Now this is very fascinating. Look at this. This is James 1:1-3. And it says, James, a servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greetings. Who is he talking to? The nation of Israel? Is he? Is he talking to the nation of Israel, or is he talking to a group of people that have the faith in Jesus Christ? Well, let's read the next thing. My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. Now, is he talking to the early Christian church, or is he talking to the nation of Israel, the government of Israel? That means if James was talking to the nation of Israel, that means the whole book of James has nothing, absolutely nothing, to do with the Christian church. We're off in another little sphere over here, see? God is just talking to the nation. No, he's talking to the early Christian church. And I tell you, friends, if you want to find a book that nails almost everything, read James. He doesn't miss a point. It's probably the most thorough writing brother of Christ, isn't he?